All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm Amy Jurgens. I'm the director of the Entrepreneurship Center, and I'm very excited to have Bill Radtke here with Ybor.
You said it right. Well done.
I checked with Ray before today because I didn't want to say it incorrectly.
I checked the PowerPoint.
Yeah, I put it on the PowerPoint.
Oh, nice.
And Bill is going to be talking to us about the great program that they've developed just since March. So as we always do, we'll have everybody go around and introduce themselves, and then Bill, the floor will be yours.
Perfect.
All right, Bill.
All right. Well, thanks for coming out, and I'm excited to talk to you all about Ybor. You got the name right, Ybor. It is pronounced Ybor. It's based off of Ybor City in Tampa, Florida, was where the Cuban sandwich was invented. The interesting thing about the Cuban sandwich is that it really is kind of like this hybrid immigrant sandwich. And so what happened is all this immigrant population moved to Tampa in early 1900s, late 1800s, and created this sandwich. And it is this blend of culture. It's a blend of Cuban pork, Spanish ham, German, Swiss, and mustard. And the bread was actually invented by a Sicilian immigrant who was half Italian, half Cuban. And I've been fascinated by this sandwich for a long time. I spent time in Tampa. I lived there for 2 years, and I loved this sandwich. And for me, this endeavor, it has been a work in progress really for the last 6 years. And it all started with this conversation that I had with a friend here in Lincoln. I was working as a community support director, and a lot of our work was partnering with other nonprofits to see how we can partner with them and help out. And so we had this close partnership with the Bay, and the program director there, his name was Shane Pearson. And a lot of times we just helped in crisis situations. So someone would be faced with an eviction, and they would contact us and say, can you help with rent support so this person doesn't get kicked out? Or someone is getting evicted, can you get a team of people going so that we can help move all their stuff out so it doesn't end up at the dump? Or can you help with security deposit so that we can get them into a new place? And so what happened was we were always kind of operating in this crisis model. Like we weren't really connecting with people until there was a crisis situation occurring. And then one day I was sitting in the coffee shop at the Bay at the time, and Shane came up to me and he said, what if we could help people fix the roof while the sun was still shining so that they could weather any storm? And I was like, well, that sounds great, but how do you do that? And then he presented this plan to me. This was a proactive coaching plan to be able to, rather than identifying and working with someone in a crisis situation, what if you could help them out when they were in a situation they were vulnerable to crisis so that they can move forward and avoid the crisis altogether, or have the tools to get through a crisis that inevitably comes. So this was the conversation that was happening. We had this tool, and we really were looking at what is the avenue that we want this tool to be utilized. And so we were kind of looking at other opportunities, and I became fascinated with employment first nonprofit models. There's one called Homeboy Industries in Los Angeles, California. They work with people who are trying to exit and leave system of being involved in gang activity. I'd seen there's a program called Edwin's Cafe in Cleveland, Ohio that work with formerly incarcerated individuals. And I saw another one in Tampa, Florida called Inside the Box, where they worked with a lot of single moms who were trying to get out of a poverty situation. And so I became fascinated with this idea of having an employment first model, getting connected to a restaurant, because sometimes in the nonprofit world, you hear about nonprofits, but it's really hard to kind of get connected to them, get the community connected. And it just seemed like there was this open door to the community being a part of the nonprofit, being a part of someone's life who's wanting to turn things around. So we were planning and strategizing this, and this was in late 2019. And we had our strategy on paper. We wanted to utilize this coaching tool and start a nonprofit restaurant. And so we put all of our plan together, we submitted it to the IRS, took the IRS about 4 months to get back to us. And on March 10th of 2020, we got our official 501c3 status. We're getting ready to hit send on all of our fundraising emails. And then we heard about this thing in the world called COVID. And then 10 days later, the world shuts down. And so it was like, okay, I guess we're hitting the pause button on this for a while. And we waited a while. And then it was around November. The restaurant industry was still in a rough spot. You know, COVID had only been about 6 months, and we had decided, okay, we want to hit pause on the restaurant side of things, and let's really implement this coaching tool. And so then in January of 2021, we began utilizing this proactive coaching tool. We began connecting with clients in multiple different situations. We would run through an assessment with them, and we look at 10 areas of their life, whether it's housing, job stability, family support, health, 10 different areas, and we help them to see any strengths and deficits in their life. And what happened was, so many of the clients that we were connected to were men who were navigating life after incarceration. And we kept seeing success happening. We kept seeing them moving towards stability, and they would get excited, and then they would talk to their friend who'd say, hey, you should go through this program. And then we'd get connected to another person. We would see things happening, get connected to another person. And through seeing this pattern and then really looking into some of the statistics that Nebraska was really experiencing with incarceration rates, like in this year in 2023, Nebraska became the most overcrowded prison system in America. Nebraska over the last decade is only one of 2 states that continues to see an increase in incarceration rates over the last decade. All the other 48 states are seeing a decline, and recidivism rates as well, continuing to go up. About 25% of people who are incarcerated are African American, yet that demographic only makes up about 5% of the state population. And so there's a lot of these challenges that Nebraska is facing. And so we had a big question to ask ourselves, which is, does this demographic deserve a second chance? Or should we as a society keep punishing them when they're released from incarceration? And we saw this opportunity because really whenever you're presented with that tension, you can ask yourself, am I going to step in and do something about this? Or am I just going to complain about it? And for us, we felt like we had this opportunity where we had this tool. We knew we wanted to establish a restaurant. And that's kind of how we came to this was the demographic that we wanted to focus on for Ybor, for this nonprofit restaurant. And it's a population that we've really enjoyed working with, and one that we've really just loved connecting to and seeing them grow, seeing them go towards stability. And we're really excited about the product that we get to do, because this is the unique thing about this nonprofit is, yeah, we have like a really good mission that we're really excited about. We have really good tools to be able to help people move towards stability in their life. But now we have this opportunity to create a really good product as well. Because sometimes, and I've been to a few nonprofit coffee shops or cafes, things like that, and it seems like the product isn't focused on. It's more the mission of the organization is the focus, and the food or whatever they're putting out there is kind of like an afterthought. And for us, we wanted to elevate that. How do we create something that someone would say, this is the best sandwich that I've ever had? This is the best sandwich in the state of Nebraska. And I lived in Tampa for a couple years. I actually lived right next to Ybor City. What's really interesting, I think, do I have a clicker for this?
Yes. Clicker's right there on the...
This one here? Okay. What's really interesting, so Ybor City, this is Ybor City in Tampa, Florida. What's really cool about Ybor City is if you go there, they have all these wild chickens and roosters roaming around. It's the wildest thing. I don't know why it's like that, but they encourage it, and it's amazing. And it's this little pocket in Tampa, Florida. And what's really kind of funny about it is if you look at a map, so this is Ybor proper. These are like the Ybor neighborhood demographic. This is downtown Ybor City. But what's interesting is if you look at the western edge of Ybor, is Nebraska Avenue. So in Tampa, there's two main streets going out of downtown Tampa, kind of divided by an interstate. One is Nebraska Avenue, the other one is Florida Avenue. And there's a road connecting the two called Flora-Braska, which is really funny. I almost called the restaurant that. I was like, Flora-Braska would be a pretty good name, and kind of a throwback to, I feel like I need to like steal a street sign at some point and like bring it back and put it in the restaurant. But it was just interesting too, like seeing the tie of Nebraska being part of the history of Tampa, right on the edge of Ybor City. And so when we were dreaming up what type of food do we want to bring to Lincoln for this program, we knew we wanted it to be Cuban sandwiches. And so what is a Cuban sandwich then? So a Cuban sandwich, like I said before, it's this mix of Cuban mojo pork. Mojo it's a marinade that consists of it's sour oranges. You can't get sour oranges in Nebraska, so you really just mix orange juice, lime juice, garlic, cilantro, oregano, mint, and it creates this really dynamic, garlicky citrus sauce. Spanish ham. In Tampa, they actually put salami on Cuban sandwiches, which I'm not opposed to. It's delicious. Swiss cheese, pickles, and it's all on Cuban bread. And so as we were looking at developing this program, we asked ourselves, if we want to create a product that's memorable, a product that people will say, this is the best sandwich I've ever had, what do we want that to be? And for us, it was everything made in-house. I had been talking to Chef Kevin Shin. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with him, but he had been owner and head chef of Bread and Cup downtown for about a decade, and a bunch of other restaurants here in town as well. And I met up with Kevin. Kevin is now on our board of directors. And I remember talking to Kevin about this bread, and Kevin said, we need to make our own bread. And I was like, Kevin, that is so much work. Can we not just take our recipe, give it to a baker in town, have them make our bread? And he was like, no, absolutely not. We have to make the bread. And we do. We make our own bread now. We roast our own pork, marinate it. We don't make our own cheese yet or ham. I would love to be able to make our own ham, but there's some health and safety regulations that we'd have to get through in order to do that. We make our own pickles and every part of it. And the reason why is when you're connecting this, it's not just creating a good product, but anyone who's a participant in our program, they get to be a part of handcrafting something and actually giving someone tools. Because even a lot of the men that we've been connected to so far, most of them have had fast food experience at some point in their life. And so they know how to take a burger, put it on a grill, or put some fries in a fryer. But there is a difference between working in a fast food setting or handcrafting something. And having a craft of being able to know how to bake bread, knowing how to make pickles, knowing how to cultivate a roast of pork and taking it out at the right time, knowing when it's seasoned appropriately for a sandwich. And all these components, we want our program participants to be proud of what they're able to create. And with that pride, be able to move into the culinary world and have skills that they could take with them to other restaurants here in town. And so this is what we want to do. Here are some of the statistics that I had talked about in Nebraska, most overcrowded prison system. And then we began looking at some positive statistics. So, this is a recidivism one, is having a job has been shown to reduce recidivism, and individuals are less likely to commit crimes when they have stable full-time employment. And so for Ybor, for our Second Chance Kitchen, we're really focusing on three things. First is meaningful work. Having a job that gives you purpose, gives you meaning is really, really valuable, really, really important to us. Having a job with a livable wage. Because even what we found with a lot of the clients that we were working with through our stability coaching program, until they had full-time work with a significant wage, their stability journey was essentially stalled. Because it really is the bottom of the stability pyramid. Until you have that, it's really, really difficult to move forward in your stability journey. So having a job that's meaningful with a livable wage, now we can begin working on what does housing look like? What does food situation look like? All these things in place. Our stability coaching program, I thought I had a slide, nope. Stability coaching program, like I said, it looks at 10 areas of someone's life, puts each of those 10 areas on a continuum between 1 and 10, and then we work with our clients to set goals. And any area that looks to be a deficit is, how do we move this forward? And we utilize motivational interviewing techniques to help them set goals and help maintain those goals. And we meet with them each week over time to be able to move forward. And then professional development. So this program, our goal is to establish a brick and mortar restaurant. Right now we're operating as a pop-up model. So we're showing up at places like Jazz and June, Glacial Till, Zipline, popping up, serving our food with a limited menu. Our goal is to establish a brick and mortar restaurant where we can have at least 6 or 7 full-time participants in our program. Once we get to that place, it'll be a 12-month program. And what that 12 months looks like is for 6 months working within our kitchen. Once they hit 6 months of working in our kitchen, going through our stability coaching, having work, seeing them move towards stability, then the conversation is going to be, how do you want to transition onto further employment? What does that look like? Do you want to stay in the culinary world? What type of restaurant do you want to go to? And then build those connections with them to be able to help them move on into a restaurant, into the city. Or maybe they work for us for 6 months and they're like, I hate working in a kitchen, which is going to happen. And then it's like, what industry do you want to move into? Because there's opportunity, there's options. And then we can help them figure out where they want to head and transition to their next area of employment. Once they do that, we will continue working with them for an additional 6 months within stability coaching, meeting up once a week to ensure that they're maintaining their stability. And then after that time, they'll graduate from our program. And overall, I found this Anthony Bourdain quote, and I love it so much. The commercial kitchen is the last refuge of the misfit, a place where people with a bad past can find a new family. And this is the environment that we want to cultivate. This is the program that we want to have in our city, where people find this community, they find this new family that deeply cares about them, that deeply cares about the journey that they're on and where they want to go. And I'll close with this story. At one of our first pop-ups back in March at Zipline, actually it was our first pop-up, we got slammed. It was amazing. We had sold about 175 sandwiches, and it was just nonstop the whole time. After the event, one of our clients called me and he said, Bill, you have no idea how much that night meant to me. And I said, tell me more. And he said, Kevin Shin kept calling me chef all night. He's like, I've been in fast food and I've been in restaurants for 20 years and no one has called me a chef before. But for the first time, someone identified what I was doing and called me a chef. And what was significant about that moment is, it was a light bulb moment, because when you come out of incarceration, society wants to label you a felon. They want that word to just hang over your head at all times. Every job you apply for, I'm Dave, I'm a felon. Every housing application, I'm Dave, I'm a felon. But in this moment, rather than being defined by his worst moment, he gets to be defined by who he wants to become. I'm Dave, I'm a chef. And so for us, even in that moment, seeing that this is one of our core values, is that in the kitchen we call each other chef. To give us a new identity. And even if someone doesn't continue working in the restaurant industry, is they get to now craft their life as meticulously as a chef crafts a dish. So So this is Ybor. This is what we're trying to do. We are in a capital campaign right now to raise $250,000. We've raised about $50,000 so far. Once we hit that 250 mark, we're going to start looking for a brick and mortar spot to establish. We actually have a fundraiser on September 27th at the Jane Snyder Center right next to Hub Cafe. I want to invite each and every one of you to that. Tickets are actually free for that. But we just ask, will you be a part of our community of supporters to see us establish this brick and mortar restaurant? You can go to our website, yborforgood.org, and there's an RSVP on there. I also have some invites if you want to take one of these. And I also have some Ybor brochures, which has a lot of the slides that I showed. And if you want to take that with you, you can. But yborforgood.org. That's who we are. That's what we're trying to do. And if you have any questions, I'd love to answer those. Jody.
Do you work with Rise? Yeah.
So we are establishing a really strong relationship with Rise. I know their executive director, Jeremy, and they've been really helpful every step of the way. Once we hit the point where we're going to establish a brick and mortar restaurant, they are going to be my first phone call, because who we hire as our kitchen manager, one of our non-negotiables is it's someone who has lived experience being incarcerated, coming out on the other side, so that that person understands what they're going through and can be a mentor to them. And so, yeah, I love Rise. Rise is an amazing program.
You said there were 2 states that were increasing the population of prisoners. You said Nebraska is one. What was the other state?
It was Idaho. I believe 99% sure. It might be Iowa. I don't think it's Iowa. I think it was Idaho though. Yeah. And a big part of that is our prison population in terms of numbers is obviously significantly smaller than other populations. But it is showing that there is something that needs to change. And what is that? And even since establishing this program, we've cultivated some relationships with people in Department of Corrections. We're working right now with the Work Release Center, Community Corrections, to develop some programming. And this is a conversation that everyone seems to be having, is how do we reduce these numbers? Nebraska Department of Corrections is saying it, the governor's saying it, and it is part of a conversation that's happening right now. Yeah.
My impression is your main mission is to assist those just released from incarceration. I mean, it could be the Cuban sandwich, it could be a Polish pierogi, it could be Philly cheesesteak.
Absolutely.
But your main mission, though, is to assist those released from incarceration.
Yep, that is our main focus right now, is working with people released from incarceration. And part of reentry for people is connecting with them before they're released from incarceration. UNO just released a study that Department of Corrections told us about. If someone connects to programming before they're released from incarceration, their chance of recidivism gets cut in half. Then if they get connected to programming after release, it goes from 40% to 20%.
Do you have a schedule when you're popping up with your restaurant throughout the city? Is that on your website? Does that go against the idea of pop-up? It's a surprise. I don't know.
We don't have anything super consistent just yet, but yeah, we just post on our social media. So when we get something, we'll post it out there like, hey, we're going to be, like this summer, we did Jazz in June. So it's like, we're going to be at Jazz in June every week. Then in July, we were at Glacial Till for 2 weeks. We're at Glacial Till. And we just recently did a couple lunch pop-ups at the Work Release Center the last couple weeks. So yeah, we'll put it out there. Some are more for the public and some are more private, more catering like Department of Corrections was. But yeah, September 27th that's the win right now. So we want everyone to come to that and not any other pop-ups right now. But in an ideal world, the conversation that's happening right now is how do we create something a little bit more consistent, like every week, similar location, rather than constantly changing and having to put it out there in social media. Similar to like Mercado does that. They do like every Friday, they do a lunch thing that they kind of do out at the Casa Bovino location. Something like that is something that we're really exploring right now. We have a relationship with JTK Restaurant, so they let us cook out of their commercial kitchen because they're only open for dinner. So I'm trying to work on them to see if I can work out something with them. Maybe a lunchtime thing would be really fun. Yeah.
Are you looking at food trucks?
We are totally focused on a brick and mortar right now. That is our main goal. But Jazz in June and Glacial Till and these events have convinced me that that will be a part of our business model. It's just cooking in a commercial kitchen, putting everything in catering equipment, moving it on site, doing that, executing, moving it back. It's a lot of work. I mean, you spend about 50% of your time just transporting. And I would much rather have like a motor food type model. I mean, they had the truck first and now they have the brick and mortar, but now that's kind of their base of operations for their food truck. So a model like that is definitely something we're gonna explore once we have that. Yeah.
Well, Baker's Chocolate, every Saturday, every football Saturday, they allow or have people with food trucks or whatever come in there so they get all that traffic. So
Yeah, definitely. You said Baker's?
Baker's Chocolate out there at Greenwood.
Oh, okay, very cool.
Actually stopped by there a couple of times.
Nice. Yeah. Do you have a contact over there?
It's Todd, what's his last name, do you remember? He spoke here a few years ago. I'd have to look it up.
Okay.
Todd Baker,
Okay.
that's the contact.
Nice.
That makes sense. Yeah. But
I'll explore that. I'll reach out to them. Thank you, Jody.
Does anybody have any other questions?
How receptive are inmates to this program? Is there interest? And how will you screen participants?
So right now we have a very limited client base because our focus is, yes, it's working with clients, but we want to honor them with time because we're a very small organization and establishing this brick and mortar restaurant. The conversation I'm having right now with community corrections is, how do we develop a pipeline? How do we develop that pipeline to be able to identify who would be an ideal fit for our program? And so I'm working with the warden right now, and what we're throwing around that we're talking through is developing something on-site at community corrections that can get people food handlers licensed, do something more of a classroom setting, get them connected, and then people who are interested, then taking them off-site where they can help us prep for our pop-ups. There's about 20 hours of prep work to be able to execute one of our pop-ups. So coming into the kitchen with us, helping us execute that side of things, and then the people who are really showing interest from there, being able to then work with us actually at pop-ups. And so that feels like a really good pipeline for us, because if there's different stages to coming into the program and gauging interest, then we'll be able to identify people who really do have a passion for cooking, who want that to be a career for them, so it actually becomes more of a career development program rather than just shooting in the dark. Because yes, we know not everyone's going to want to get into the culinary field once they're done with the program, but we would like for that percentage to be pretty high because we're focusing and cultivating so much of a culinary experience for them.
I heard you speak at 1 Million Cups.
Yeah, I remember that. It's good to see you again.
Earlier this spring. And in that presentation, you talked about the translation of these skills to other workforce skills, say working at Kawasaki or getting some of those positions so that this can be a transitional job. Do you paint that picture for them that this can be a stepping stone job, or is it like you just described, this is a career path in the culinary field?
We pitch it as a career path in the culinary field. That said, a lot of the clients that we've been working with so far, there is some basic employability skills that are lacking. And there's many conversations that I have with our clients right now where I sit down with them and I say, if you would have had any other job, you would have been fired. And this is why. And they recognize it and they say, yeah, you're right. And being able to coach them through those things so that if they do end up with a job at Kawasaki, they understand the basic job skills as well as the career culinary stuff. And so, yeah, our vision and our goal is to increase employability for our clients where they're not having to bounce from job to job after getting fired. But being a restaurant, having a culinary focus, you know, it's a win for us, of course, if someone gets any job after our program. But being in the culinary industry would be definitely a win for us, for sure. Because we're such a small program as well. Like even once we get the brick and mortar established, I mean, you're looking at 6 or 7 clients every 6 months. And so when you're talking about overall the stats that the state of Nebraska is dealing with, you know, we're dealing with a very small percentage of that. And recognizing that, you know, a few people having a lot of depth to that rather than just a lot of people with a very small impact. And so for that reason, yeah, we would like to find people who really have a passion for cooking.
Are you working with all of the correctional facilities within the state?
We're specifically working with community corrections right now because that is the final step for someone. That's where they go the last year that they're incarcerated to help them reintegrate back into society. And that really is the ideal partnership for us right now with this program. Also because we can pick people up and bring them off-site and then drive them back because it really is to help them re-enter society in a positive way.
And for us that don't understand necessarily the correctional hierarchy, what exactly does that mean? What you just said. So are people transferred from other facilities to this community corrections?
Yeah. So if you're serving a long sentence, in the last year of your sentence, you can be sent to community corrections, which is across the street from Pioneers Park, also called the Work Release Center. So once you're there for the first 30 days, you can't leave the site. After 30 days, you can start getting connected to community programs. Community Action has an amazing program that work with people re-entering society after incarceration. And they'll pick people up and bring them into their programming at, not Community Action, Center for People, and then bring them back. And so also when you're at the Work Release Center, you could find work. And so as long as a company is willing to provide transportation, or if it's on a bus route, you can actually leave the facility, go to work, and then once work is done, you have to head back and check back in. And so it really is a way because there's high incentive to abide by the rules because if you don't, then you maybe have to go back to the penitentiary. And so because of that, it really is, it's a way for inmates to be able to help them reintegrate back into society, get connected to programming, get connected to work before released fully. Yeah.
Okay. What scalability, like what do you foresee that looking like? Do you want one brick and mortar? Do you want something in Omaha? Is this something that you want to expand across the country? I mean, obviously you're saying seven clients every 6 months, so there's not a huge capacity there. What does that look like, or what's the dream there?
Yeah, so initially brick and mortar, that first number is 7 every 6 months. Based on restaurant profitability and busyness, that number can increase from there. Phase 2 will definitely be some type of a food truck or trailer, something that we can get connected to different things happening in the city, catering options, which will then increase our program participants as well. We can hire more people. And then after that, it will be expanding to Omaha. So we're connected to the Interrail Food Hall in Omaha. And one of the operating managers there actually spent time incarcerated for quite a few years, actually worked with Kevin Shin. And when me and Kevin met with him, he said, how do we get you here in Omaha? We want you in the Interrail Food Hall. And I'm like, well, I don't want to live in Omaha, so it's not going to happen yet. But yeah, because there's a huge need in Omaha as well. That is like 10 years down the road. That's what I see. From there, I would like to, I'm open. I met with a donor who really wanted us to focus on like a franchise model and franchising, and I don't think that's the direction that we're going to go. I'm not totally closed down to it, but I mean, how many Cuban sandwich shops, when you have that niche food, can you have in the city of Lincoln or in the state of Nebraska? That's limited, but yeah, I'm open, but that's kind of where we're looking 5-10 years down the road. I like to be a little bit more adaptable, so yeah.
Well, I think franchise in your case might be the wrong word for the fact that your focus is helping those incarcerated to be able to work and live outside of the incarceration. The sandwich is just the vehicle. So to say franchise, I would say to maybe somehow create this program so that it's viable in other places.
Yeah. Or I think it would be another option that I have in the back of my head is what other populations could benefit from a program similar to this? An employment first program, get into a restaurant setting, and the refugee population is a big one. There's a place called Emma's Torch in New York that works specifically with the refugee population. Get them trained in a kitchen and then get them a job. Wonderful program, they do great work. And then you could even expand your food options. You don't have to just focus on Cuban sandwiches. You could do other focused food dishes. Because for us, we're very pork focused. And most of the immigrant population that come to Lincoln don't eat pork. And so our model would not be suitable for a demographic like that. And I'm an entrepreneur. I like to do a lot of things, and I think having multiple restaurants with different themes would be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Once somebody graduates from the program, is it possible for them to stay connected and stay involved?
Yeah, so once they're totally completed of the program, what we will do is we'll meet with them once a month for probably a year, just to stay in touch with them, make sure they're doing okay. And even with our program participants who have completed our stability coaching program, that's a part of it. Because, stability isn't just a journey that you keep moving forward. It's got hills and valleys to it. And there's still things that, people need help with, advising on. But yeah, in terms of how they stay connected to our restaurant, that's still to be shaped and determined, but something that I definitely want to cultivate. Because we've seen that too. It's like for some of the clients that have completed our program, they continue to just call me and want to have coffee and want to check up, and having a restaurant where they can come in and come back, eat, share a meal with us. Even one of the things I really want to do once we have that restaurant is before opening, having like a family meal together, maybe even having someone come in and share for 5 or 10 minutes, and having previous graduates of the program, having them the ability to come speak and share their wisdom, I think would be really powerful and a way to keep them connected.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
So at this point, I'm gathering you guys don't do like specific catering type events, that you're not available for things like that? Or how do you find those opportunities right now?
Yeah, right now it's real, like 50 is kind of our cutoff. So if there's a catering opportunity where it's 50 or more people, we'll say yes to that. But we really don't have the capacity to do less than that because this food is very prep heavy. I mean, it sounds funny because it's just a sandwich, but we make all of our sauces from scratch and the pork, and it's a solid 20 hours of work baking our own bread to get to that point. And so because we don't have the infrastructure just yet where it's constantly just going, that's our cutoff right now. So if there's an opportunity where someone has catering option for 50 or more, we'll say yes to that. Yeah.
Is that on your site, that catering available for 50 or more? because it is all year round is wedding season, and this is kind of like, oh, wow, it's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah, it is not. Our website is really focused more on the mission side of things, and we've gotten that feedback a couple times recently, and so that's probably something that we need to focus on is the food component as well. And that's where Kevin Shin has been really helpful for us, because for me, I'm really focused. I love the mission, and Kevin's like, you can't ignore the food, because some people are going to care more about your food than your mission. Some people are going to care more about your mission than your food. And so Kevin's been really helpful to kind of keep us on that train. And so it's good to hear you say that, Jody, and that's something I think we'll probably look to address soon. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you, Bill, for
Yeah.
coming today and sharing your story. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. This is great. Yeah, and if you guys want any of the invites or the brochures, just feel free to help yourself.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all. Appreciate it.